how I discovered Islam and what I discovered. Well, the second question requires a bit more time than just a few minutes we have now. But the first question, how I discovered Islam, is quite simple. As a child, born and raised in France, I had absolutely no exposure to Islam. In my school, there were only two foreigners, one from Vietnam and one from Italy. And by the way, I was very excited to have people who spoke differently, who thought differently. I've always been attracted by different cultures. My favorite topics in school was geography and languages. But there was no Muslim in that school. There was no Muslim around me. The first encounter I had was when I was 17 years old. I moved to Germany, and I remember to get my immigration card, to my green card, as we say in America, I had to enter a room, and it was full packed of Turkish people who were also waiting for their residence permit. That was the first encounter I had with an Islam that was more cultural and very superficial, of course, but not theological. The theology comes later on, but much later on, because after that, after 1 year of studies in Germany, my good friend and I decided to go to Turkey for vacation. I have to say that was 50 years ago, and Turkey was quite different from what we see today. No hotels like today, not many tourists. And I will never forget the morning we got out of the train station in Istanbul. The flavors, the light, the sounds, everything was so different. And I remember the little boys cleaning shoes on the streets, the car that was all around driving like crazy, and it was a completely different world. The way people acted, the way people spoke. But the most important thing was the first evening when we left Istanbul, we took a ferry. And on the ferry, a man approached us and said in a few words he knew in German that he wanted us to be his guests for tonight. He invited us to stay in his house. That was mind-blowing. I had never experienced something like that somebody on the street who doesn't know me approaches me and invites me to overnight in his house. And that's how the journey of enthusiasm started. Seeing that Orientals put humans in the center, not things, not events, but you as a human being. You are like a brother. We do everything for you. They call that hospitality. And that's true that we were invited many, many times, but not just for food. People listened to us. People were receptive to what we said, to what we brought. And that was for me something completely new. And so the year after, I decided to go by myself back to Turkey and then to keep on direction Iran. So I spent a lot of time in Iran. People were so friendly, again inviting me, listening to me, talking to me, asking questions. I mean, that was absolutely awesome. That was 1977, and it was before the revolution in Iran. People were not very strong Muslim, and I didn't know about that. What I knew is that these people were absolutely interesting and worth spending time with. And from that time, I was looking for every opportunity to spend time with Muslims wherever I could find them. Of course, meanwhile, I have traveled to many countries, almost all Arabic countries, North Africa, Sub-Sahara, Central Asia, Far East, and so on, and found a lot of really, really, really nice people. And that's something I want to tell you. Muslims are really friendly, and if you have Muslim friend or the possibility to meet people, just go and say hi. Actually, the Quran speaks so well about the faithful Christians, saying that they will be the best friends of the Muslims. That if you have questions, you Muslim, you should ask them. That you should talk with the people of the book in the most courteous way. This is what the Quran says, and unfortunately, people have built walls between religions. And I'm glad that I never experienced that in my life. And so I came as a 17 years old student to Germany, but the first thing I met were Turkish people. And that was the most important thing probably in my studies, to meet other cultures. Then on vacation and spend a lot of time thinking about Islam. Actually, when I came back from Turkey, we had some lectures in the university on comparative studies on religion, and of course Islam was a big part of the cake. The professor loved what he was teaching, not just because he loved theology, but because he had spent a lot of time in Turkey, like me, and he told how he was bargaining in the bazaar, how he spent time outside chatting with people, drinking tea, and it was exactly the level I had. So when at the end of my studies, the undergraduate, I had to write to a paper, maybe 100 pages on something, and I was a little bit scared because I thought that the teachers knew everything. So whatever I would choose, languages, I mean Greek, Hebrew, or church history, or dogmatic or something, the teacher would kill me because I didn't know so much. So I thought about the topic I should write about what the teacher had no clue about. And I met somebody, he was from Morocco. He was a Muslim who had become Christian. And I said, well, okay, I'm going to write something about the Quran. So with this young man from Morocco, I began to spend a lot of time reading the Quran. And I had the impression that teachers didn't know anything what I wrote, and they just gave me a good grade. Because it was not too bad, actually. I tried to criticize the Quran, to show that the Quran is not inspired. Something I would not do anymore, because today I completely out of that story of criticizing, accusing, defending myself, trying to convert others. But my purpose, as you know, is just to compare religions and let everybody decide what he wants. And of course, dealing with the Quran, I learned a lot of things from the books I read, from this young man who came from Islam. And this fascinated me because the more I studied, the more I found common ground between the two religions. Some people ask me, well, why didn't you become a Muslim? And the answer is very simple, because reading the Quran, I discovered that Islam is not the religion of somebody called Muhammad. Adam, Abraham were Muslims way long before Islam as we know it. Actually, even in the Quran, Christians are called Muslim, those who gave their life, who surrendered their lives to God. Even in the Bible, the word Islam is there as the principle of surrendering our life to God. The word Meshula, Muslim, is 25 times in the Old Testament. On the theological level, my impression was, or my conviction even, that the Quran was a kind of sermon, compilation of sermons about the Bible. Actually, the word Quran is an Aramaic word for sermon. So the Quran is a compilation of sermons about the Bible. We just bring the reader or the one who listens to the Bible, to the story of the Bible, to the theology of the Bible. Not to correct the Bible, like many Muslims think, but to confirm what the Bible says, as the Arabic word musadikan suggests. So the Quran brings people to the Bible, to the faithful Christians, and to Jesus. Yes, the Quran said that many Christians have apostatized, but Islam also says a lot of good things about Christians, like the Quran saying if you have questions, ask those who know the Bible, or only talk with the most courteous way with those who read the Bible. Your best friends will be among those who say they are Christians. So I didn't find the necessity to change my religion in no way whatsoever. On the contrary, the Quran says that Christian will be on the front side above the others on the day of resurrection. This is Surah Al-Imran, verse 55. All this encourages me to encourage you to make the step to go to your neighbors, to your friends, to other people who are just different, Muslims or others, and just learn from them. I think we can learn from everybody. What I learned from Islam is something I didn't find in Christianity. The concept of hospitality, which is in the Bible, but unfortunately has been lost a little bit in Western culture. And that's too bad, because Jesus says we have to be hospitable. The whole Bible speaks about that. That's something I learned. The second thing I learned is that the human is in the center. People will listen to you, will try to learn from you. People are curious to get something good from you, not as a profit, but as a sign of respect. And why don't we do that with each other? Muslim Christians, Christian Muslims, among our own people. Just try to break the walls that are there and go to the other and learn from them. I can tell you that these 45 years of dealing with Islam have brought me closer to the message of the one God, to the message of the Bible, because I began to read the Bible with Oriental eyes. And that's very important because the Bible has been written in an Oriental context and not in an American or European context. So by going back to the roots, I came back to the original understanding of several texts that don't make sense for us Europeans. When Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth, for example. Salt is something that costs nothing in the supermarket, that makes you fat and sick. Why should we be the salt of the earth? But in the Oriental context, salt is something extremely precious. Maybe today Jesus would say, you are the superfood of the earth. And that's what I want to be. So go to the others, learn from the other, and that is going to make you strong in your conviction and enrich your horizon, widen your horizon, and help you understand others toward peace on this planet. And I think this is something we really, really, really need. Don't you think so?